Hey everybody, hope you're having a great time of the day. And here I'm with my colleague Eoin and I'm Bhavya to share our recent work. It's a proof of concept called document signing. So without a delay, let's get started. For the next 20 minutes, we will talk about what is a stage and what are the different ways of sharing to a stage, and followed by a quick demo and a brief code walkthrough. Then we'll open the stage for or the floor for questions. Just to get the context right, in the past 1 minute or in the couple of slides, I have been talking about stage, sharing to stage. To set the context, this is about in-meeting Teams apps. So if you have an application that you have built for meeting purposes, then the whole presentation for the next 20 minutes makes more sense to you. So whenever we join a meeting, it's always you want to share something with the audiences visually, right? Which is easier way of communicating. So the first option we do is just click on the share button and share your screen. Great. But that's one way. It's a one-way interaction. What if you want your users to be more interactive and you built an app? How do you get this more appealing experience? So for an example, as you see on the slide, there is a Contoso app and I'm about to do a sprint grooming, let's say. And the app on the right side, it's called a side panel. The center part is called a stage. So this is the stage we are talking about for the next 20 minutes. And when I load the app to this meeting and click on this little arrow that's highlighted, the app gets shared. It means all the attendees of the meeting will be able to see the same thing at the same time, also be able to interact with the app, which is cool. So it serves the purpose of sharing the whole app in one go, from a side panel to the center stage. And to achieve this, there is a little setting for the manifest, which we highlighted here. And for more details or more documentation, the links are in the footnotes. So this scenario is called sharing the whole application to the stage. Okay, that's great. So in the previous application, all my teammates can see the whole side panel being presented to the stage. That worked. But what if I have a different scenario? Sharing a lot of information, if the app is actually heavily loaded, can be more clumsy, right? Especially on the stage. So is there a way that I can pick and choose the panel documents, or if I can choose a specific board to share? So in this example that we have picked, there is a sales team that's trying to present the data. And I have a bar chart, which we really wanted to focus on. And if you take a closer look at each of these panels, there is a button called Share in the Meeting. So I click on the first bar chart for sharing the meeting. So that chart gets presented directly to the stage. It means I can pick and choose what part of the app or which amount of information I want to share from this side panel to the stage. So this is called Programmatic Sharing to Stage, which is a new feature from the platform. And our POC is built on top of showcasing this Programmatic Sharing to Stage by using a document signing scenario. And here are the technical requirements that will let you use this. And again, in the footnotes, there is a detailed link for more documentation. So right now we know what is a stage, and we are talking about in-meeting apps. But let's take a step back and then see a bigger picture. So I briefly touched upon for Programmatic Sharing to Stage use case for a sales team where everybody was able to see a specific part of the app and interact with it. Can there be more use cases? Of course, there are. At a very high level, we brainstormed a few. And one of those we'll be demonstrating in a bit is about document signing. Let's say you are running a mortgage application, or you want to do a lease signing document, wherein you and the other party have to review at the same time and then sign off a document. Also, another example could be like a GitHub pull request. So it can be interactive, and without delays, the work can be done in the same meeting time and using this Programmatic Share to Stage. Another interesting idea that we were brainstorming is about small and medium businesses. If you're a small business and you want to give a virtual personalized experience to the user, wherein you have to help somebody to pick an outfit and choose various options that are available from your store, then you can create a meeting, add your app, and use Programmatic Sharing to Stage so that you can share the cart. So you as the seller and I as the buyer can together work on the cart and close this deal. So these are a few use cases, and this could go on. All right, so before we dive into the demo, I would like to walk you through two different prerequisites or two different scenarios that we experimented using proof of concept. Also, a heads up, Vajit has pointed out about People Picker. We do use it here. We experimented that part of People Picker as well as part of our POC. So our POC is called meeting signing. And there are especially two different kinds of experiences for our POC. First one is a pre-meeting experience, or we call it as creating a document. So the idea is to have a document, review together, and sign off the document. So first of all, we need a document to get started, right? And for this POC purposes, we mocked up a document. We mocked up a few ahead of time. These are not the documents from SharePoint or not uploading from any other sources. We did a HTML mockup, and the app runs on React in the front end, and we do have a C# backend. So first, let's talk about creating the document part. I am a Teams user, and I created a meeting because I wanted to go over a certain document and then sign off with all the attendees or whoever I wanted to sign off. I added them as the attendees to the meeting. And then I install this app to this meeting. So once the installation is done, I have an option to add this app to a tab. So as soon as I add this app to a tab, so there will be a little pop-up, which there will be a little tab where I can go ahead and create the document. Once that's done, all the calls from here are handled by the backend service. And once I choose what kind of document I wanted to load, again mentioning it's a mockup, so the document gets created. So one part of the problem is solved. I now have a document. And the second part is about sharing this in a meeting. So here comes the time of the meeting, and we all join the meeting, and then I start the meeting, and I open the side panel, the right-hand part of the previous slides, if you remember. On the panel, because I created a document, I own one, right? So I would see all the documents that I created as an individual card, each of them. And if somebody doesn't own any documents, they will see a different message. Again, we'll see this in the demo. I'm just giving a heads up. So from the given set of documents, I will choose which I would like to share and click on that share to meeting button. Then everybody will be able to see the document. And I would like to take a step back here. Whenever I created a document, I said we are using People Picker, right? We use the People Picker to assign signers and viewers of a document. So if you are a signer, you can view and sign the document. If you are a viewer, you only get a read-only access for the document. If you are neither of these, you will not see the document at all when I share. So we covered all this as part of our demo recording, but here is how it works. And once you share the document to the meeting, everybody can review in real time and then sign off. As you sign off, it gets reflected in others' views if they have the access to view the document. That's how this whole meeting signing POC works. And I would like to hand this off to my colleague Eoin to take you through the demo and a code walkthrough. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Bhavya. And thank you all very much for joining the community call. So yes, as Bhavya was talking about, we were creating a proof of concept to showcase this new programmatic share-to-stage API. So it's create a simple application. Bhavya kind of covered this, but I'll just summarize it again. That allows you to share a document in a meeting, have members of that meeting sign the document at the same time. And it's a React application that calls a .NET API. So some of the features that we're using in this proof of concept includes, as you might expect, the new programmatic sharing to stage API. And we're using Team single sign-on and with Azure Active Directory. We have adaptive cards for specific flows. And then we're using the authorized user to create user-specific stage views so that what users see changes based depending on their authentication status. And one thing to note as we go through this, that this is being done using mock documents. And Bhavya said this already, but just to be purely clear, we're not using SharePoint. We're not using some other service. Great. So to create a document flow, Bhavya ran over this, but so before the meeting, we have a task module that is popped up that allows you to create a simple mock document. It uses an adaptive card to create this flow. If you haven't used that adaptive card before, they're an extremely easy way to create a simple piece of UI that is styled to the client that it's operating on. But one of the things that Reddy talked about that I want to make sure we call out is that we're also using the people picker here, which allows you to easily select single or multiple users in a card. It allows for pre-population, so if you have specific users you want to have selected in a list, that's possible. But best for this scenario is that it allows you to pick your people from either the entire organization or from the current context. So in a meeting, the current context is the participants of the meeting. So there is an extremely easy way to select users from a current context for essentially zero cost using the people picker in adaptive cards if you make use of it. All right, let's get on to some parts demos. Unfortunately, demoing a meeting app from inside a meeting is difficult. There are like multiple scenarios and views to this app. So we've pre-recorded all this. But if you want to try it out, there is a manifest file available on our GitHub repository that you can download today and run. So on the videos, you'll see on the slide side, you'll see there are two videos. The left-hand side is the meeting participant. This is Bhavya's view. And on the right-hand side is the meeting organizer. This is my view. It might be a bit hectic, but hopefully I have enough pauses included to keep things covered. Great. So this is the signing a document flow where everybody in the meeting can both view and sign the document. On the right, you can see that the document creator has a list of documents that they've created previously. This is listed in the side panel. And if you look at Bhavya's side panel, she has no documents created, so she doesn't see this option. The document creator can scroll the list, find a document that they want to share, and then click on the Share to Meeting button. This Share to Meeting button is what actually calls the new Programmatic Share to Stage API, and essentially tells teams to load a specific URL to the stage. Now, as we share the stage, you see the document is shared almost immediately to both participants, and they both see a similar UI. However, small things like the text box of if you are allowed to sign or not vary depending on who is viewing the document. So on the right-hand side, Eoin has a blue text box, and on the left-hand side, Bhavya has a blue text box, but they're in different positions because not everyone can sign in the same place. Now, Bhavya is about to sign the document, so she's going to click on her text box. It's going to pop up. And this pops up with a little adaptive card. Again, we're using adaptive cards to create small UI elements that confirms that Bhavya is who she says she is. In a real world implementation, this might be something like a text box or some other form of input that allows for you to sign with your finger. And if you continue on, you'll notice that as Bhavya has signed it, almost immediately I will see her signature show up on my side of the my view of the meeting. And so you can even create some sort of two-way or multi-way communication. I can now sign the document. I pop up my adaptive card, I sign it, and the document is now signed. Hopefully that makes some sort of sense. But as I said, this is only one scenario, and there are multiple scenarios that might happen that can lead to different outcomes for the viewers. One is viewing a document. So this is a scenario where a meeting participant is allowed to view the signing happening, but is not allowed to sign themselves. So you'll see here that on Bhavya's left-hand side, she has no text boxes. She can see that there's a text box for me, but there is no place for her to sign or to click, and she has a fairly basic, essentially, document to show. But as I go about signing the document, taking a second to decide if I actually want to sign or not, you'll see that my signature shows up on her left-hand side almost immediately. But perhaps most interesting is what happens if you want somebody in the meeting who shouldn't see the document signing. Maybe you're in a large meeting like this and you only want key people to sign a document and then move on with the rest of the scenario, the rest of the meeting. So in this scenario, we've set it up so that only I, the document creator, has the ability to sign and view the document, but the non-viewing meeting participants will not be able to see the document happening. So while I am able to sign the document shows for me, Bhavya will see an error message that says she is not authorized to view this document. This is all handled by making a call to the backend. So when the stage loads with a document ID, with a specific document, it makes a call to the API from the React app, and the API will verify that the user is who they say they are, and they are entitled to view the document. Our go through this more in a second when we run through the code. And so at the very top, Bhavya talked about sharing an entire application to stage. So that is one of the two ways you can now share to stage. And that is still possible in our demo. If somebody clicks on the share application to stage button in the side panel that is highlighted, you will see the following error message, essentially saying that the share button is not supported in this app. That is because while you're able to share, we don't have a scenario to cover this. But I just wanted to call out that it's possible to have application sharing as well as programmatic sharing. All right. So I'm going to do some quick code through and I'll run through our code. Our code is currently available, this proof of concept is currently available on the Microsoft Teams sample repository in Office Dev. And let me open up the code. You can see it's available today and you can run it today if you like. Hopefully the documentation covers everything. And maybe zoom in a bit just so you can see this. Great. So our code is split into 3 sections. We have the web code, which includes all our controllers, our authorization code, and our front-end code. Our domain includes a bunch of services, and our infrastructure includes data storage and calls to external services like Microsoft Graph. But the most interesting thing, I suppose, to talk about is the new API, how simple it is and how it works. So in our side panel document card, we make a call to the share.app content to stage function from the Teams SDK when you click on this button. It's quite simple, where it takes in a callback to handle the success and failure states, and it also takes in a URL that tells us to navigate to. So here we're saying navigate to the current host /stage/ID, where ID is the document ID that we are using. And this URL or this route is a route inside React router that we're using. So if we go to our React router config, you can see that we have a stage/document ID. So when this route matches, we will open the document stage component. And that document stage component is relatively simple. It will get the document ID from the parameters, and then we'll make a call to our API, and it will render whatever is returned from that API, either a document or if an error is returned, it will render that error. That API is relatively straightforward. We take in the document ID, we get any information we need to from our document store. This includes information like the document name, the document title, signatories of the document, viewers of the document, and things like that. But before we give that document back to the user, we do a check to ensure that whoever is requesting this document is entitled to this document. And that is handled in our get document handler, which is an authorization handler for .NET. And we check to see that the user who's making the request is either the owner, one of the signers, or a viewer, an assigned viewer of this document. And if they're not, they will get the "you are not authorized to view this document" error that Bhavya received previously. You might ask, how are we doing this? How do we know who the user is? And this is all done using the Teams SDK, and in particular the get auth token call. So we authenticate users to our app, and we store that information, and that auth token is then used on calls to the API. And this works great for most of our scenarios. However, there's one scenario where if you try and create a document, we need more information than what Teams get auth token SDK provides us. And that's because as part of the create document flow, people picker gives us a user's ID, and we want to get more information like the user's name to ensure that we can provide the right information back from the API call. And that requires additional scopes that is not provided from the Teams auth call. So we get the user information, and if we don't have the right scopes, it will fail. We respond with a get auth consent required, and back in the front end, when this response gets back to the user, to the front end, it will initiate a single sign-on flow for the on behalf of scenario. And once that scenario is complete, we will be able to make graph calls. One thing I wanted to call out, and even more so now that Reddy has discussed it as well today, is the people picker itself. So as I mentioned, we are using adaptive cards to create certain UIs, and in our create document flow, we're using adaptive card people picker to select viewers and signers. And it's an extremely simple integration if you want to use it. So we have just got a simple choice set here. And for the data for that choice set, we're telling teams to get information from the graph.microsoft.com/users dataset. And we're also limiting that data set to the current context. And this gives us the ability to choose users essentially zero cost. Cool. And I think I'm just about at time, so I'll quickly wrap up. Thank you very much for listening, guys. We've run through the sharing to stage feature and how it can be used. And we've also demoed a proof of concept, which covers the programmatic sharing to stage API, but also touches a number of things like team single sign-on and adaptive cards. As I said, the proof of concept is available today on the Microsoft Teams sample GitHub. And thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please leave in the chat and we will try to get to them ASAP. Back to you, Professor.
Excellent. Thank you. Really, really cool stuff and a great scenario and great explanation how this one will work. And like Eoin and Shai was saying, you can download the zip, like what Jade was putting in the chat as well. This code is then hosted from Microsoft and you can play around with that sample. You can kind of test it out within your developer tenant, which is free as well. So please check it out. Great way of learning how to build Microsoft Teams meeting apps using this model. Thank you for that.